Hello everybody, welcome to Brandon's Haunted Library. My name is Brandon, your undead librarian, and I read and talk about fantasy, literary fiction, and of course, horror. Thank you for choosing my video. Today we're diving into the second episode of Silver Screams to Broken Spines, where I pair iconic horror movies with books that I think capture their unique vibe. We'll explore what makes these stories tick, compare the screams on screen to those on the page, and see if the selections live up to the films. If you missed episode 1, you'll definitely want to check it out. I kicked off the series with the slasher classic, Scream, and a book that is a perfect match for fans of the meta horror slasher classic. You can find the link to that video down below. As for today, we're turning our gaze to the dark, claustrophobic depths of space with Ridley Scott's Alien. And for this video, I've chosen not one, but 2 books for this episode, each hopefully evoking a different aspect of what makes Alien so terrifying and unforgettable. I'm going to start by talking about the movie, giving some history, and geeking out a bit for one of my favorite movies. But if you could care less and just want to get to the books, I get it, you're on BookTube, you can jump ahead to this timestamp and skip all the movie talk. But everyone along for the ride, let's jump into the movie. In space, no one can hear you scream. This marketing tagline encapsulates the essence of Alien, a film that redefined horror and science fiction. By the late 1970s, Star Wars had showed the studios the lucrative potential of science fiction. But while George Lucas's masterpiece leaned into the action-adventure, Alien promised slow, quiet dread, a haunted house in space. The writer, Dan O'Bannon, crafted a script tapping into primal fears of isolation, the unknown, and visceral horror. And he went to pitch the script to the studios as Jaws in Space. A crucial element of Alien and the success of the franchise was the design of the xenomorph, brought to life by Swiss artist H.R. Giger, and won him the Academy Award for Visual Effects. Dan O'Bannon discovered the work of H.R. Giger, who blended human physiques with machines in an art style known as biomechanical art. The grotesque beauty of his alien designs was unlike anything audiences seen before, and the haunting visuals played a significant role in the film's atmosphere. Ridley Scott, fresh off his critically acclaimed debut, The Duelist, joined as director. He brought with him a detailed visual storyboard which convinced the studio to double the budget for the film. His storyboard took inspiration from films such as Star Wars and 2001: Space Odyssey, but he treated it not just as science fiction, but as a serious horror story, taking inspiration from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, aiming to emphasize claustrophobia, tension, and eerie silence of space. And I can't talk about the making of Alien without mentioning its protagonist, Ellen Ripley, played by Sigourney Weaver in her first major film role. Ripley defied the conventions of the era. She was both intelligent and tough, qualities that made her one of the first major heroines in a genre dominated at the time by male leads. Ripley's character resonated deeply with audiences, setting a new standard for female protagonists in the film, inspiring countless successors. Alien was a cinematic game-changer. It didn't just scare audiences when it hit theaters in 1979, it left a profound mark on cinema, cementing its legacy as one of the most influential films of all time. Alien opens with the commercial spaceship Nostromo returning to Earth when it intercepts a distress signal from an unexplored planet. The crew, obligated to investigate, discovers a derelict alien spacecraft and a bunch of mysterious eggs. When one of the eggs hatches, an alien organism attaches itself to a crew member, unleashing a terrifying chain of events when the crew returns to the Nostromo. As the creature grows into the infamous xenomorph, the crew must fight for survival in the isolated claustrophobic confines of their ship. At the heart of the struggle is Ellen Ripley, whose survival instincts and courage become humanity's last hope against the unstoppable nightmare. Ripley's strength and resilience marked a turning point for female protagonists in film, earning her iconic status along contemporaries like Princess Leia and Sarah Connor. Weaver's performance would later earn an Oscar nomination for Aliens, solidifying Ripley as a cultural touchstone and, for me, my favorite final girl. While Ripley anchors the film, the supporting cast of the Nostromo crew deserve equal recognition. Each character, from Dallas to Ash, add depth and camaraderie to the story, making their fates all the more harrowing. The dynamic between the crew highlights themes of trust, survival, and the crushing weight of corporate greed, embodied by the sinister Weyland-Yutani Corporation they all work for. The company's willingness to sacrifice lives for profit underscore a chilling subtext that feel all too relevant in today's society. The setting itself is another standout, with the ship's maze-like corridors, dim lighting, and industrial design. The Nostromo feels alive, amplifying the claustrophobia and sense of doom. It's a masterclass in set design, proving that the environment can be as much of a character as the actors. And it cannot be overstated how pivotal a role the practical effects played in Alien's legacy. The iconic chestburster scene, achieved with intricate puppetry and clever camera work, remains one of the most shocking moments in cinematic history. These effects, combined with Giger's terrifying xenomorph design, gives the film tangible, visceral quality that CGI or modern CGI often lacks. Ultimately, Alien is more than just a horror movie. It's a layered atmospheric masterpiece that continues to resonate with audiences. Its exploration of survival, corporate exploitation, and the unknown ensured its place in horror history. Now, I've seen Alien and the other films in the franchise countless times, and I could spend hours dissecting the layers of horror impact. But this video is about books. So let's explore some that I think would capture a similar sense of dread. Now, one book that came immediately to mind, which I read last year, was Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. It was a science fiction horror novel with an unsettling atmosphere that felt like the perfect companion to Alien. Much like the Nostromo's crew venturing into unknown depths of space, the biologist and her team in Annihilation enter a mysterious and dangerous zone of Earth called Area X. The book is hauntingly introspective with an internal tension that mirrors the quiet terror of Alien. There's also a thematic connection in the way both stories explore psychological unraveling of characters as they face an alien presence. However, the alien presence in the story isn't a traditional monster, but something incomprehensibly other, distinguishing itself as more cosmic horror rather than the primality of the xenomorphs. Vandermeer's use of language to create the grotesque living landscape of Area X creates sensory experience similar to Ridley Scott's visualization of the Nostromo, as well as the alien planet. The descriptions linger in your mind, much like the visceral imagery in Alien. And while I loved Annihilation, I ultimately decided to look for other books that might offer more direct parallels to the industrial claustrophobic horror of Alien. Still, Vandermeer's novel is a masterpiece in its own right, and an excellent recommendation for anyone who appreciates cosmic horror and science fiction. Another strong contender was a book on my TBR called The Luminous Dead by Caitlin Starling. From what I understand, this novel takes the isolation and psychological tension seen in Alien and transposes it into the depths of an unexplored cave system. The story follows a caver who accepts a suspiciously secretive job to map an uncharted cave. Her only contact is a mission overseer who remains distant yet always present throughout the communication link. There appears to be a focus on survival horror and the mental strain of isolation. Very similar to Alien, the caver is cut off from the world, and the cave's darkness and unknown dangers echo the Nostromo's labyrinth corridors, where every shadow might hide a lurking threat. I may be misreading this a bit, but it sounds like the relationship between the caver and the overseer might mirror that of Ripley and Ash in the movie Alien. And while The Luminous Dead captures more of what I love about Alien, I feel as though I can find a story that more closely aligns with the themes and tone of Alien. Next, I took a look at The Scourge Between Stars by Ness Brown. I actually got this idea from a similar video from the channel Book in Hand, where Peyton recommends this for fans of Alien. I certainly trust her opinion on this, and the book caught my attention because it seemed to align with the kind of sci-fi horror that I was searching for. From what I understand, the plot centers around a deadly alien parasite aboard a spaceship, very similar to the xenomorph in Alien. And the crew members are picked off one by one as they face the unknown threat, creating tension that's reminiscent of Ridley Scott's masterpiece. And the main protagonist is a strong female heroine similar to Ripley. It really seems like an almost perfect match to the plot of Alien. However, the reason I didn't choose to read this one for this video is because while it certainly hits many of the same beats, it feels like it might be a bit too derivative of Alien's plot. That's not to say it's not worth checking out. If you're a fan of Alien and want something that gives you a familiar, high-stakes horror in space, this could be a fun read. The idea of a space crew confronting an alien parasite and dealing with isolation is at the core of Alien's horror. I definitely plan to read this someday because of the Book in Hand recommendation. It just won't be in this video. I've decided to go with a different book. In the end, I ended up choosing two books, in fact, to dive into. First, I'll read Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes, which I picked because it taps into that eerie haunted house vibe, but in space. This is one I hear a lot of people talk about, and I've seen it sometime given the Alien comparison. The story involves a crew investigating a long-lost spaceship, and as they uncover dark secrets aboard, they find themselves trapped in a deadly game of survival. The premise certainly promises to channel the feeling of isolation and tension from Alien, with the claustrophobic setting of an unfamiliar spaceship and the creeping dread as the crew uncovers sinister things. However, while Dead Silence definitely matches the haunting atmosphere of Alien, I don't think it will be a creature feature or slasher in the way that Alien is. I'm not sure if it even involves an alien life. Focus in Dead Silence seems to be more on the psychological terror and the mystery of what happened rather than an alien predator stalking the crew. So while it scratches that same haunted house in space itch that you had with the Nostromo in Alien, it doesn't quite give you the same direct fear of the xenomorph. And that's why I also use this video as an excuse to pick up a book from the Alien Extended Universe, Alien: The Cold Forge by Alex White. Now, to be clear, I do not enjoy movie novelizations, which the Alien franchise has several, but this isn't that. Similar to Star Wars novels, there are many books written that take place in the same universe as the Alien franchise, but these novels tell stories not told in the films. So I thought, if I'm looking for a story that channels the same primal fear of Alien, what better way to do it than a novel that features the hostile xenomorph? There's no other alien predator quite like it, and The Cold Forge promises to deliver that primal terror we associate with Alien. I'm craving a story that truly brings back the sense of dread and horror, so having a xenomorph in the mix feels like a no-brainer. I rewatched Alien recently, so the movie is fresh in my mind for me to start reading Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes. I'll talk to you again after I finish, and we can talk about how well this matched the vibe of Alien before I dig into Alien: The Cold Forge. So I finished Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes the other night, and overall, I'd say it was a pretty good book. While I didn't love it, I definitely enjoyed it and would recommend it to horror fans. It's clear that Barnes has a strong storytelling ability, and I'm excited to check out more of her work in the future. But the big question is, does Dead Silence match the vibe of Alien? Is this a book I'd recommend to someone who loves the film and is looking for something similar? For the most part, yes. There are a lot of parallels that made this a solid companion for Alien. But first, a quick spoiler-free summary of the plot. The story follows the first-person point of view of Claire, a communication specialist on a space crew that finds a long-lost luxury spacecraft known as the Aurora. As they investigate, they discover horrifying secrets that threaten their survival. Barnes uses a dual timeline structure, one timeline set when the crew investigates the Aurora, and the second timeline set after this when Claire has memory loss from the Aurora and is in questioning by Verex, the corporate corporation she works for. Both timelines unravel the mystery of the Aurora and Claire's own trauma, which kept me hooked. Character Claire herself is one of the book's strong points. She's a resourceful, intelligent, and strong character, much like Ellen Ripley in Alien. Barnes does a great job portraying Claire as a trauma survivor, which is comparable to Ripley in James Cameron's Aliens, the sequel to Alien. That said, some of Claire's decisions and motivations, particularly in the later half of the book, felt inconsistent, and I wish her character had been slightly better developed overall. The Aurora, with its eerie abandoned corridors foreign to the crew, is very reminiscent of the alien planet from the beginning of Alien, as well as the Nostromo ship. The Aurora's haunted, claustrophobic atmosphere contributes to the psychological horror in effective ways. And then there's Verex, the corrupt corporation pulling the strings, which is a clear parallel to Weyland-Yutani in the Alien franchise. Both companies epitomize greed and the disregard for human life in the name of profit. One thing I loved about Dead Silence, because I'm a horror fiend, was its gore and graphic imagery. Barnes doesn't hold back when it comes to time to describing the horrors the characters encounter, which reminded me of the visceral terror and gore in the Alien films. The first-person point of view also added to the suspense and tension, pulling you directly into Claire's experience. There's a romantic subplot that, for me, didn't add much to the story. It felt unnecessary and detracted from the overall tension. Additionally, while the first half of the book is steeped in psychological suspense and horror, which I love, the second half leans more into action, making it feel more like Aliens rather than the original Alien. While this kind of gives the book the best of both worlds, I found the latter half less compelling and I was somewhat underwhelmed by the ending. But overall, Dead Silence does a lot of things right. It captures claustrophobia, psychological terror, and corporate corruption that are central to Alien. But where it falls short is in the sci-fi and horror departments. It doesn't quite go as deep as I'd hope. And that's why I'm glad I decided to also read Alien: The Cold Forge. I'm craving something with a little more action, more terror, and of course the xenomorphs. I can't wait to see how the iconic predator translates to the page. I recently finished Alien: The Cold Forge by Alex White, And I have to say, I enjoyed this one. It's a compelling addition to the Alien universe and does a fantastic job capturing the balance of science fiction and horror that made the first two Alien movies so amazing. Unlike the films, this book doesn't center on a strong female lead like Ripley. In fact, most of the characters are deeply flawed, some outright terrible, particularly the antagonist, Dorian Sudler. Dorian is a truly horrible person whose cruelty makes him an incredibly effective villain, though somewhat over the top. Our protagonist, Dr. Blue Marcellus, is perhaps the closest thing we have to a heroine in this story, though she is far from perfect. Blue is pretty interesting as a character, not just for her survival instincts. Blue is pretty interesting as a character, not just for her survival instincts, but because she suffers from a degenerative disease and experiences the world primarily through a synthetic android body, a concept that allows the book to explore themes of disability and identity. The way Alex White weaves these ideas into the narrative adds some depth to an otherwise brutal and action-packed story. To briefly summarize the plot, the Cold Forge is set aboard a corporate research facility named the Cold Forge, and tasked with studying the xenomorphs for the potential of weaponizing and monetizing them. Classic Weyland-Yutani activities and a setup that will feel familiar to fans of the movies. As expected, things go horribly wrong because of corporate greed, unleashing chaos, gore, and xenomorphs throughout the facility. What this book does so well is strikes the perfect balance between science fiction and horror. It leans heavily into the slasher of space vibe of the original Alien, while also incorporating the thrilling action that made Aliens so memorable. There is even an action scene utilizing the power loader robotic suit, an homage to the iconic climax of Aliens. The xenomorphs themselves are written with vivid detail, and the horror and gore in the second half of the book are particularly striking. Once the chaos is unleashed, it's relentless, non-stop action in a way that will appeal to fans of the film. One thing I really appreciated about The Cold Forge was how it expanded on the types of stories that can be told in the Alien universe. It stays true to the spirit of the original films while introducing new ideas and characters to make it fresh and exciting. This is no simple retread of the movies. It's an incredibly well-written story that stands on its own, even within a familiar setting. Now, I know that books that expand upon cinematic universes sometimes get a bad reputation, but The Cold Forge is proof that this stigma isn't always deserved. It's an intense and thrilling novel that any fan of the movies should consider reading. I've had similarly positive experiences with books written in the Star Wars universe. Now I'm even more excited to explore more stories set within the world of Alien. This was my first dive into the Alien extended universe, but it won't be my last. So, does Alien: The Cold Forge by Alex White give you the same feeling as the movies? Absolutely. If you're looking for a book that captures the tension, terror, and visceral thrill of Alien and its sequel Aliens, this is a fantastic choice. But let's not forget Dead Silence. While The Cold Forge is steeped in the action and gore of a creature feature, Dead Silence captures the haunted, claustrophobic atmosphere of Aliens in its own unique way. Both books succeed in evoking different aspects of what makes Alien so unforgettable, and I'd recommend them both for fans of the franchise. And if you've read any of these books, or any other ones that I considered, I'd love to hear what you thought about them. Thank you for watching episode 2 of Silver Scream to Broken Spines. Remember to check out episode 1 covering Scream if you haven't seen it yet. I hope you enjoy these videos because I really enjoy making them. If you did enjoy this, don't forget to like and subscribe and share with your fellow horror fans. Here's a sneak peek of my next episode.
Yes.
Hello. I'd like to order.
So I'll catch you next time. Happy reading, everyone.